Well, hello, everybody. While we're waiting for a few more to join, I'd like to welcome you to this. I believe it's the third time we're doing this. My name is Heidi Kummer. I serve as the president of the Patient Advocate Certification Board, but I also am the chair of the Exam Commission. And I'm happy to see some familiar faces on here, which is always nice. And we're going to go ahead and get started because we know that a lot of people tend to have questions and we don't. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I was actually worried that we would be getting utility work noise, but they seem to be on lunch break right now. So let's hope they have a long lunch and don't interrupt us. Okay, so we'll get right started. And I wanted to give you a little bit of history how this whole exam thing even came to be. When our foremothers and the occasional forefather got together sort of back in 2010, 2012, and decided that patient advocacy was distinctly different enough from case management, care management, and some of the other specialties that deal with transitions in care, et cetera, et cetera. They basically sat around the table and crowdsourced, what is it that a patient advocate needs to know? What are some of the things that they do on a daily basis? And that's how the initial 7 domains of practice were established. We, since the PAC board undertook an official job task analysis where we sent out surveys to a bunch of people who do this on a daily basis, who filled out very, very intricate surveys. I don't know if any of you already were aware of that happening. It was, I think in 22 is when we started the process. And got the surveys back, and they are the basis for our new domain structure, which then got consolidated into 5 domains. And so they form the basis of the exam, and every single item on the exam can directly be associated or related back to one of the domains and subdomains that are in the materials. So we're not making this up. These are things that practicing advocates say they do on a daily basis. The one thing that did get added, which I think was sort of it felt to be inherent in the original one, but we officially added them, are the social determinants of health, because as we all know, they really, they really underlie so much of our clients' issues. And are part and parcel of what we address pretty much on a daily basis. So that's a little bit. I'm trying to think of. All right, I think I will then just say one more thing about scheduling before I hand it off to Danielle Marshall, who is our executive director. I believe most of you already know her. If not, you should. Because she's really the brains of the operation and certainly the one who has all the tech savvy. And in terms of scheduling your exam, and I'm not trying to be funny, please be mindful of your time zone. We've already had 2 people schedule themselves again for 12:30 in the morning. We do not think that's what they wanted. So please, if you're using a VPN or however your computer, keeps track of time, whatever time zone you're in, please make sure you are choosing a correct time that is convenient for you. All right, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Danielle for some tech advice, and please listen very carefully because really the vast majority of problems that candidates tend to have are because they don't follow directions. in terms of setting up the exam, etc. So I'm going to let Danielle take over from here, and then we'll get back to talking about content and tips and tricks for the exam.
All right, and I don't mean to sound a little bit slow here because I'm still admitting people from the waiting room. So I might be juggling back and forth. Okay, so a couple things. Heidi, as you know, was talking specifically about, or her goal here is to help you be prepared to pass the exam. My job is to help you make sure you actually get to take the exam. So that's what we're going to talk about for just a few minutes. If you have not already, I've already sent this to all registered candidates, but if you did not receive the technical or the tech guidelines, I'm going to put that link in the chat, and I want to make sure that you download that and take a look. It's it's not that long, but it's very specific. It goes over all of the important details about how to schedule, how to get tech support, all the things that you need to have handy. And so I'm going to do that real quick, and then we'll get back to my notes that I have here in front of me. Okay, so the first thing you want to do after you have ensured that you've downloaded and reviewed the tech guidelines is request a sample session from Proctor360. Proctor360 is the company that delivers the exam. PACB is the certifying body. Our role is limited to standard setting and maintenance of the certification. As a certifying body, we cannot actually deliver the exam. So we contract with Perlidian, who manages our application processing and our database, and they contract with Proctor360 to deliver the exam. The exam is delivered by remote proctoring. Remote proctors probably proctor organization, maybe hundreds of different organizations. And while we all have a similar set of rules that make remote proctoring a reliable and valid system for conducting certification exams, the rules do vary a little bit by each organization. And so you want to make sure you've read the instructions and then submit a trouble ticket through Proctor360 and request a sample session. The sample session simply allows you to go through that login, that check-in process, so that you'll be familiar with all of the various things that you're going to go through when you actually do start your exam. And none of that will be a surprise. And it will also help you to identify any issues that you may have on exam day well before that day happens. Because once you get into that check-in time, that 15-minute window, you have 15 minutes to check in and do your troubleshooting. And that 15 minutes is going to fly by. So you want to make sure you identify any of those issues ahead of time. We want to make sure that you have your internet and your software settings up to date. You want to make sure your firewalls, your antivirus software, anything that's that could potentially block you from taking the exam. We encourage you to take it from a personal computer and not from your work computer. If taking it from your work computer is necessary, you absolutely must contact your IT department. There are very specific instructions available through Proctor360 for what those settings need to be to allow your computer to have access to the exam and not get blocked out by your company's firewall or whatever other security measures they have in place. We also, they're very specific about the kinds of things that you can and cannot have on your desk or your work area. So you need to make sure your work area is completely clean and clear. We encourage you, well, you have to have your physical government issued ID, which is going to either be your driver's license, a passport, or some other kind of government issued valid ID, not expired, has to be a valid ID. And we also encourage you to take a picture of it with your cell phone and have that. They're not going to let you have your cell phone right in view, but you want to have it handy in case a lot of the newer IDs have a holographic symbol on them, and it sometimes makes it difficult for the proctor to get a good look at the photo ID. So keep a photo of your ID on your phone, because that often will work if the proctor can't get a good view of your ID itself. So keep your cell phone nearby, but not within view of the proctor, because he'll call you out for that, or he or she.
I just, sorry, Danielle, for interrupting,
Go ahead.
but I just want to echo that, because it is one of the things we see most often, that there's a problem with getting the correct ID verified. And it's not that people don't have it, it's just, it's not showing up properly on the webcam, the proctor can't verify it, and then they just basically say, nope, sorry, can't do it. So do us a favor and take a picture of whatever ID you're going to use, and no, a gun license does not qualify. We've had that come up before as well. And it's not just the new driver's licenses, but the new passports also frequently have this holographic image that is very, very hard to read for a webcam. So take a picture of it on your cell phone, have it readily available to use if needed.
Okay, well, and those are the main things. The one thing that you need to make sure, if you have any kind of a technical issue at the very beginning of your exam, you must submit a trouble ticket through, they call it a support ticket, to Proctor 360 through your exam portal. Contact your proctor immediately. As I said earlier, we have absolutely no contact or no connection to the exam system. I cannot do anything to assist any of you once you are actually scheduled to take your exam. And even our Prolidian team is very limited. They can assist with scheduling, but they do not have access to the, excuse me, I gotta let some people in here. They do not have access to the actual exam system either. Only Proctor 360 folks have access to the exam system. So make sure that you submit that support ticket immediately, because once your 15 minutes is up, then the proctor is going to say you're going to have to reschedule. And it's important for you to understand, again, we want to do everything we can to prepare you and help you, but we get charged for your proctoring time, whether you take your exam or you do not take your exam. And so we don't have any choice but to initiate some rescheduling fees, only enough to cover our expenses or cover our costs, but we have to pay for that proctoring time regardless. So please make sure that you prepare. It will make your day so much better, and it will make your exam experience so much better, because we really want you to focus on sharing it with us, how much you know about patient advocacy, because that's really what this is about you sharing your knowledge of patient advocacy. So I've got the chat window open. We're not going to take questions right now, but if you have a question, put it in the chat window, and I can chat back with you while Heidi's talking with you more about the exam. And then if we have time at the end, we'll take some other questions. Okay, Heidi, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Okay, thanks. So the exam itself, as I'm sure you're now all aware, is made up of 125 scored items and 25 items that are not scored. They're so-called pilot items that we do trial runs with. They are distributed throughout the exam, so it's not, you won't know the difference, which is which. But that's how the exam is put together, 150 total items. And the reason we do not provide your results at the end immediately is because this is still a relatively new profession, still a relatively new exam, and we analyze the performance of every single item after everyone has completed the exam cycle to make sure that the items perform appropriately and as we had intended. If they don't, we sometimes discard them and give that point to everybody. In other words, there are individuals who in the past have benefited from getting an extra point, which made them pass versus not pass. And so it's really in everyone's interest to be patient and to let us do the analysis and really make sure that the items performed the way they were supposed to, and that everybody's score is appropriate. The score is a scaled score. It's set by a group of subject matter experts and done through a modified Angoff. That gets too much in the weeds, but you can ask ChatGPT what that's all about if you want. But that we've been trying very, very hard to get the scores out within a week to 10 days after the cycle ends. Now, we recognize that for those of you who are scheduled to take it early in October, that, you still probably won't get the exam result until around, early November, and that's a long time. I can tell you when I took it, we didn't get our results until good 6 weeks, and it was, I think, in writing. So this is still vastly improved over what it used to be. And because it is a certification exam, the rules are very, very strict around, we don't tell you basically which items you missed. We give domain-wide performance information, that you did pretty well in this, or maybe we're a little bit less good in this. And that again is because these items get reused, right? This is something, if an item performs well, and I can tell you there are items on the exam that have been there since the very first time the exam was administered. So if they perform well and discriminate well, then they're kept. If they don't, they're revised or even, as I said, discarded. And because that is part of the safety and security features that as Danielle said, we don't actually administer it, right? We contract with somebody who then has somebody else who is actually proctoring it for you, and we have absolutely no access to that at the time. That's why there are strict regulations in terms of not being able to leave the view of the webcam, not being able to take notes, not being able to print out, et cetera, and that's really to safeguard the exam content itself. So in terms of my strong recommendations for everyone. I know that some of you maybe have not taken multiple choice exams in a few years. And most of us who do this are, shall we say, middle-aged. And so we are a little bit further removed from the whole school and examination process, and it can be kind of daunting, and I know people can be very nervous about it. So all I can say is read each item carefully. There are not many, but there might be a couple or so where the stem is negatively worded, okay, where you're looking for sort of that exception. So just bear that in mind and read the stem carefully. As I think our toolkit highlights, distractors are meant to be plausible, right? So you have 3 options. They're not all from Mars, there are, each one of them has a certain amount of merit. And your job is to say, in this particular instance, which one of those would be best? So it's not necessary that, only one is absolutely correct, but all 3 may be plausible, but you need to discern in your position, based on what the STEM is asking, which one of those answers is the best one at this point in time. Another thing I tend to say, not everybody has a clinical background, and that's okay. You do not need to have a clinical background to be a good healthcare advocate. Having said that, the scenarios that are presented may be scenarios set in a hospital, may be a scenario set in an emergency room. I like to give an example. When I took my health law final during my Master's of Public Health, the final was all about a baseball scenario. Now, I didn't grow up in this country. I don't know anything about baseball. I don't honestly really want to know anything about baseball. So the point was, I saw this scenario and I absolutely froze. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to fail this because I don't know anything about baseball. You didn't have to know anything about baseball. So after taking a few deep breaths and rereading what the problem was and what the scenario was, I realized it really had nothing to do with baseball. And that's the same thing with the scenarios you are going to encounter here. They may be in a medical setting, they may have some medical jargon in there, but you do not need to know that stuff to be able to answer the question. Okay, so don't get distracted by stuff like that. Another favorite one, don't overthink. I think most of us, especially people with, some life experience and lived experience, you have a gut. If you've been doing this for a while, follow your gut reaction. We see it time and time again that someone will have answered something correctly and then go back and change it to the wrong answer. So don't overthink. This exam is not meant to trick you. We are really just trying to ascertain that people know and understand the basics of what a patient healthcare advocate needs to know. The other thing that I always say, especially for those who do have professions or come from professions where you are used to having the decisional hat on and the fixer hat on or whatever, remember to be client-centered. This is about the client. It's not about you. So I believe if you take, remember all those things, that you will do just fine. And I do feel that the materials that especially Danielle has put together on our website, the toolkit, etc., that gives sample answers and gives explanations on why some of these answers are incorrect, right? Seem plausible, but they're not. I think there's a lot more material there than was there when those of us took the exam the first year it was offered. One other thing I do want to say about the break policy. You don't have to take a break, right? The exam is 3 hours. You have 3 hours. I'll tell you, the vast majority of people finish in 2, so it's pretty generous time. There is an optional break of 10 minutes that you can take. Time continues to run. So that's 10, it's not then 3 hours and 10 minutes, it's still 3 hours. But what is most important about understanding the break rule is once you've taken a break and you're coming back, and you have to, again, show the proctor if you went to use the restroom or whatever you did, you have to show the proctor your workspace. They need to, verify it's still clean, clear. You haven't brought any contraband to the desk. You cannot go back to items that you had previously viewed. Okay, this is really important. Please hear this. You cannot go back. If you flagged an item and you wanted to go back to it, that was your plan later on, but then you decide, oh, I think I am going to take a break. If you don't do that before taking a break, you will not be able to go back to that item. Okay, just please bear that in mind. And when you finish the exam, you should get something that says, all 150 items or so have been answered. Or, if there's something that says that there are a few missing, then, you go back and answer those. So I think those are some of the caveats that I would just also mention. Now, Danielle, do you have anything else to add?
Not to that, no. I'm just putting some notes in the chat here for everybody about all of these things are available in the document library. So just making sure everybody is aware that that's out there.
Great. Well, otherwise, I think, are there any, I haven't even looked at the Q&A. Are there any questions in the Q&A yet, Jen?
No, I have been answering them thus far.
Okay.
Anything new? Where do you see?
Okay.
Oh, so for your phone, you would normally just want to put it like, I have a shelf, beside my desk here. Proctor can't see what's on that shelf, but so I would be able to reach it if I needed it, but the proctor's not going to see it. So just, somewhere nearby, a drawer, a shelf, something like that. And keep, let's see it, while taking copy pictures.
At work, no.
Yeah, you can just take the photo with your phone. You probably won't need it. It's there as a safety, as a backup if you need it. Because we've had people that weren't able to take their exam simply because the proctor can't see the ID. So if that happens, then just tell the proctor, I have a copy of my ID on my phone, and 99.9% of the time they're going to say, okay, well, show me that. And they may even suggest take a picture of your ID with your phone. So they want to be helpful. They just want to make sure that you're not violating any of the rules that would make your exam results not valid. Okay, could you review once again how to handle tech problems within the first 15 minutes? Again, most important thing, do the sample test, because that's going to help you figure out where everything on your dashboard is. The dashboard does not look like anything you've ever seen. Why my phone is wrong? Our office phone. It's all right, where was I? I lost my place. Listening to the phone.
Dashboard is not something you're familiar with.
So the dashboard's not going to look like anything you've seen on your regular computer, because it's going to lock down your computer so that you're only going to be able to see what the exam and what the proctor wants you to be able to see. So you need to go through that sample session to make sure you familiarize yourself where the tabs are, where you can connect with the proctor. And if the one sample session isn't enough, submit another support ticket and say, I need another support ticket, or I want to do another sample session because I'm not sure I know where everything is yet. I mean, they're obligated to help us help you. So feel free to take advantage of that as much as you need to be able to feel comfortable that you know where everything is. The support ticket part comes in if you have technical difficulty. And that's where you want to make sure you do that in those first 15 minutes, because that's what alerts their team that there's a technical problem that you don't know how to resolve. And so as long as you are actively engaged in connecting with them during that first 15 minutes, they're going to work with you. It's the folks that get confused and just sit there for 15 minutes and think something's going to happen, and their 15 minutes is up and they get dumped out of the exam. So just be proactive and communicate with your proctor. You should be able to chat with the proctor. You should be able to actually call the proctor, but you're looking for a little telephone on your screen. And the tabs may, all computers don't render a dashboard the exact same way. So you have to be a little bit creative and think about, okay, where could this be on this screen? So that's why doing that sample session is going to be really helpful. So you can feel more comfortable about where all the various parts and pieces are ahead of time. And that's why we wanted to have this call early so that you still have a couple of weeks or more to go through whatever prep you need to be able to feel comfortable ahead of time. And like Heidi said, 90% of the problems that people have are not with the actual taking of the exam. It's that they fail to read the instructions and prepare appropriately. So that's my, let's see here. What else do we have? The proctor will, just while we're on the proctor thing, I'm going to stay there for a second and then we'll go back to some exam questions. So will the proctor let you know? Yes, the proctor will call you out. If you're talking, if you're moving, you know, and some people just talk to themselves when they're thinking or working, and the proctor will call you out for that. They'll call you out for moving. And again, it's not that they're saying you're doing anything wrong. They're just making you aware that they can't see you and you need to recenter and get yourself, you know, situated back where they can see you. It seems like, you know, there would be a much bigger area, but it's really a pretty small area in which they can see you. We actually watch whenever there's a problem with an exam, Heidi watches a recording of the exam, and that window is pretty little. And, you know, even if you just sort of lean over like this, you can very easily go out of the frame. So just be mindful of that and, you know, take advantage of that break if you need it, you know, to stretch or clear your mind or whatever. I'm just doing the proctoring questions, and Heidi will go back to the actual, that's a study question. And I'll let Heidi do that one.
I can't see the Q&A for some reason, Danielle, so
Okay.
I'm not sure why, but
all right. So let's go back and do a couple of these. So there's a question that says, I'm having issues on how to study. I'm used to studying right and wrong or the meaning of words, but this is a scenario, this is more scenario questions, and I don't know how to study that. So that's a very good question. I'm gonna let Heidi take that one.
well, I think that's one of the reasons we established the toolkit, right? This is in fact not math. This is not about 3 and 4 equals 7. This is very much about judgment. And that is how, in fact, some of the eligibility criteria were set, because in the first several years, there were nobody knew really what is there an eligibility criterion for someone to be a healthcare advocate or not. So the first several cycles, it was like 2.5 years or so, anybody could sit for it. There were no eligibility criteria. What we saw based on the demographics of the people who took the exam was that individuals who were younger, and I mean like under 30, which frequently correlated with not having a bachelor's degree, did not do as well. And it is most likely, or, you know, our reasoning was that it really has to do with a lot of what a healthcare advocate and patient advocate does, is based on life experience, right? It's judgment. You need to have appropriate judgment, and it's very, very hard to teach that. So I believe that the toolkit, though, in its attempt to give examples of items, questions for each domain, give the various distractors, and give explanations of why one distractor is better than the other two, I think is very helpful. And I think I did see something asking about the practice test. So the quiz that is available to anybody who goes on the website is not a harbinger of how you will do on the exam, right? It is merely an exam that mirrors the way the exam is set up. So it has a STEM, has 3 distractors, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of what is being asked should I say, in how difficult something is, it's not a predictor of how you will do. It gives you an idea of, you know, what you know in certain subject matters, but as I said, don't use that as, oh, well, you know, I scored 30 and therefore I'm going to do just fine. Once you've registered, you have access to a practice test. Now, that practice test does consist of items that used to be on the exam. So they are actually retired old exam items. Again, I caution people so that that is definitely closer to what you will find on the actual exam form. But at the same time, you know, the exam has evolved through, as I said, the job task analysis, different domains, slightly expanded domains, and stuff. So again, it's close, but not, certainly not identical. I hope that helps to answer the question.
Right, and it's a very similar question, Heidi. It says, where is the best central resource on what is and what is not patient advocacy? In other words, how do I stay in the ethical zone and away from practicing medicine without a license for those of us with experience-based expertise in navigating particular medical concerns, but with only low-level healthcare licensure or no licensure?
Well, it's a great question and an important one. And for those of us who do have medical backgrounds or clinical backgrounds, you know, that is a prickly point, so to speak. And one of the things that I always say, even though I have a valid license to practice medicine, but my advocacy work is strictly based on providing information. I do not tell people where to go. I do not tell them what procedure to have. I do not tell them what, you know, exams they should have or do. I provide information so that they can make an informed choice. And mind you, they do not always choose what I would choose or what I would maybe recommend if I were their physician, but I am not their physician. So the real important thing, and that's why professionalism and ethics are the largest domain in this exam, is to know and understand the boundaries and to respect them and make it clear to your clients from the get-go that yes, your medical background or your social work background, whatever your background is, informs who you are, informs how you might get information, informs, you know, who you might know and where you might be able to pull a string. But it should not give them the expectation that you're going to tell them what to do and, you know, what is best. And so if you set expectations from the get-go, that will go a long way to not being in that situation.
And just a couple quick follow-ups on the practice exam, that the formal practice exam that Heidi mentioned, which is only available to registered candidates. You can take that as many times as you want. It is a mini version of the exam. It does map exactly to the same blueprint as the exam. So it is as close as you're going to get to taking the exam without taking the exam. And you can take it as many times as you want. Okay. Now the practice test is not 150 questions. And Heidi mentioned earlier, the reason it's not 150 questions is because those questions for the official practice exam have to be retired items from the exam that is validated for use. And we simply have not been around long enough, like many certifications that have been around for decades, if not centuries, that have thousands and thousands of items in their item bank. We just don't have enough that we have been able to retire that many items to have 150 available for the practice test yet. All right, let's see what else we got here.
I think Deb had a question about in-person proctoring.
Yes, do you want to take, you want me to take that one, or you want to take it?
Yeah, no, it is something that so it was a question about, can it be arranged that a group of people get together and have an in-person proctoring session? And the answer to that is yes. We are perfectly happy to work with groups or individuals who want to set that up. I don't know that we've I don't know that we discussed a minimum because we haven't had that question in a while, Danielle. So it's something again that we're open to discussing and arranging.
Yeah, it depends on a lot of different factors. So there's not like one blanket answer to that question. It really depends on a lot of different things. Okay, let's see. So we've talked about there's another question here about the content and how to study. I don't know that there's anything more that we can really say about that other than take advantage of the study guide, take advantage of the supplemental toolkit, make sure you understand the definitions of the words in the key terms document, read the standards, ethical standards, read the Code of Professional Responsibility. All of those documents are available within the document library that I put the link to in the chat. And
there were several studies. Sorry for interrupting, Danielle. There were several study groups in at one point over the years that maybe created flashcards. I'm sure you might be able to find something. But as you've all figured out, who are trying to get ready for this exam, one of the things that this profession really does still lack is a core curriculum where we can easily point someone to take this course, do this training, and then you will know everything someone should know to be a patient or healthcare advocate. And I'll let you know that the PAC board, together with other coalition members, are working very, very hard to get something like that established, to make it easier for people to find all this information. Unfortunately, many of the coursework that existed, many of which were master's level courses. And I would agree that that is not necessary to have a master's in healthcare advocacy. It's certainly interesting and fascinating, but not necessarily a good entry point for most people. They've closed down. And so there are not many institutions at the moment that offer courses. Some of the advocacy organizations offer courses. I know that AFA did something like a study group they had put together. There are, I think, other groups that will review course types, boot camps, that you'll have to look. That's again, it's something, believe me, we are working very, very hard on to be able to point people to a proper course that makes it easy to find everything. But in the interim, there are really a lot of documents and materials available on the website. If you just take the time and look through them, they're incredibly valuable. I saw something about the Cleveland course just now pop up. They're closing that down. Someone else is trying to revive it in a slightly different format, but even the Cleveland course is shutting down, just as an FYI.
The one thing I would add to that, though, and it sort of tees off of what Heidi was talking about in terms of the curriculum, once we completed the job task analysis and actually was able to publish that data, the domains have become dramatically more descriptive of the role of the advocate and exactly what the tasks are and the associated knowledge, skills, and abilities. And all of that material is available for you and now, but we're also using that much more descriptive information to help develop the full body of knowledge that will support and undergird the development of that core curriculum. So as Heidi mentioned, we're working fast and feverishly on that and would love to be able to point everybody to it sooner rather than later. I don't see any other questions unless anybody else has anything else.
Well, then I'll just add that as you may have gathered, this is, we consider this an evolving profession. And as such, in a few years, we will be repeating a job task analysis. And as things come up, we do adjust, evaluate, et cetera. And along those lines, we just, while at the Health Advocate Summit, convened a group of subject matter experts to look at the technology skills that advocates need these days. And I think you'll all agree from the fact that we are here on a Zoom webinar to the existence of healthcare portals to, whether it's insurance portals, whatever it is, being able to manage a certain amount of very basic tech skills that you can then also help your clients with is critically important. So we are in the process of establishing those. They'll get validated. They'll be voted on. As I said, we have subject matter experts who put that all together, and down the line, not on this exam, but on future exam formats, there might be questions that are simply related to some of the technology skills and digital literacy skills that advocates need and that you use every single day. So nothing surprising.
So Heidi, a couple new questions. Question about the passing score. So I'll let you take that one.
So as I mentioned before, it's a scaled score, okay? And what that means is that during an ANG-off, when subject matter experts get together, assess the exam, assess every single item, what you're looking for is
You're frozen up there, Heidi.
a person who is minimally qualified, not dangerous, to do this work. Okay, it's telling me my internet connection is unstable. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can now.
Sorry, yes, as I said, utility work going on here. And so what we do in the ANG-off is we come up with a range, a score range, right? And I think the most recent ANG-off was somewhere between 87 and 91 raw score. So the exam forms, are not identical every single time. As I said, we go through item performance, some items get revised, some get kicked out, new items come in, pilot items that performed well get adopted into the exam, et cetera, et cetera. So not every form really has the exact same weight, right? Some forms are a little harder, some forms might be a little easier. And so based on that, having a range, a score range for a cut score is what we do, and is a it's actually the most commonly applied way of scoring certification exams. So I hope that helps.
Let's see.
Passing rate in over the last several years has been in the 70s, so 72 to 76%.
Which is on par with the average for a certification exam. Cost of the exam, all of that detail is in the candidate handbook. And the first time exam is $425. That includes the application and the sitting fee. There is a different schedule for people that have previously taken the exam and are retesting. So you would want to definitely check the candidate handbook. It's also available in that same document library. And I'm not sure I'm following this question. So are there any listings of the most useful and appropriate portals? I'm guessing that has something to do with studying, but I'm not 100% sure.
Whoever asked that question, can you clarify what you're asking, please?
I don't see any other questions while we're waiting. I think we've answered everything in here. If there's any that we didn't, we will definitely follow up with you directly. Like I said in the chat earlier, we are recording and the recording will be available. I will send out an email to everyone with a link to the webinar recording, and it will also be listed in the document library. Late question.
Oh.
Any additional questions at this point? The key is be prepared. Just be prepared. And that's really the fundamental, one of the most fundamental things I think in dealing with the folks that I deal with every single day, which is you don't have to know everything, but you need to know where to be able to figure it out and find it. And that's really the most important thing about this is taking, just take the time to prepare, take the time to get your study in order. Remember that it's a critical thinking and reasoning exam, and always defer to, the role of the advocate as being there to support the patient or the client.
Good.
Okay, so one of our people said she submitted a ticket for the sample session. She already got the link back to test it out. So see, it's a simple process, but you have to initiate it. So just make sure you take advantage of that opportunity. All right. Okay.
All right. Well, we are easily accessible. So if you know how to reach us. If there are any other questions that come up that you cannot find the answer for, I really impress upon you that the handbook, the study guide, the toolkit are very, very comprehensive, have a lot of information, the resources, way, way more than they did 6 years ago, 7 years ago, whenever it was when this first started. So, I'm confident that you can find what you need. And
I'm always here if you need anything else. So.
All right. Well, we wish all of you lots of success. 3 years. You need to research. I see a certification question. It's valid for 3 years. You need to complete 30 hours of continuing education / professional development credits to recertify, or you recertify by exam. That's an option. Some people actually do that. All right, I think that's it. So we wish all of you lots of success. Go into it, as I said, with as much relaxation as you can. Don't be nervous. This is really, you can do this. So we look we look forward to seeing many of you become BCPAs. So thanks for your attention and all the best.